course, can't have too many complaints. They got their game at Wolves off recently.
I know.
For similar reasons. Anyway, let's have a look at this. And I really don't understand why we're looking at goals like this again.
Yeah.
Because BGMOL decided, I repeat, start of the season, we're not going to check these. We're always going to give the advantage to the forward when they are this tight.
Yeah.
Which we've always done historically,
Always
haven't
done.
we?
Even when it was before VAR, we always talked about the attacker having the advantage, because what do fans pay money to see? What do we all want to see? We want to see goals. What VAR is doing at the moment is finding minute reasons to disallow goals, the lifeblood of football. Let's find a way to disallow it. A terrific goal. And I'm not saying that because I have any affiliation or not with any of these teams. I'm saying that as a football lover and a football fan. I don't want to see goals like this disallowed. No one does in their right mind. And let's have a look at it.
So remember, if there's a gap between the two lines, then the decision has to go with the defenders. Okay? But there isn't.
And it's such a wonderful goal. Great ball from Harry Winks. 2 great touches from Harry Kane. And when we looked at this and it stopped there like that, I thought, and we're looking at these 2 defenders at first, right? It looks as if he might be offside. But that's not the defender. It's Bednarak at the far side, the left-sided centre-back, who we're going to look at, because he's the one, you see him? He's deeper.
Here.
There you go.
Now, where's the gap?
Where is the gap in these lines?
So, where's the gap? If you put the red line on top of the blue, which it's easy to do,
but
they're on top of each other.
Richard, I'm looking at that, and we can even see, if people talk about feet, right? We can see Kane's way back there, and now they're judging something that he's leaning on. Look, he's leaning forward.
There's no gap.
No gap.
There's no gap at all. Now, Kane scored a lot of goals, yeah? Ever seen him score one with his armpit?
No, I never. Never seen him score with his armpit, and that's why that's a nonsense, this decision. That's how close that is. But look how onside all of Kane's body is. All of it. Apart from that strip. That foot. There you go. So we're finding reasons here, ridiculously, to disallow.
Martin Atkinson found a reason, and he should not have done.
No, he shouldn't.
And there's an absolute nonsense that we're back where we were, and we put pressure on them, Andy, week in, week out last season, in order for this not to be the case. And they did change. They did decide that we were right. But here we are back again.
I guarantee
in
you.
the same place that we were when we started.
I guarantee you, right? Had that goal been given, then Atkinson hadn't gotten involved, as he shouldn't have done, Ralph Hasenhüttl would never have mentioned it.
Not so.
He would never have mentioned it.
Of course not.
Because it's not offside. It's quite simple. Quite simple. It's not
ludicrous.
offside.
Look.
Not offside. Ridiculous.
The other one, I said I thought they were generous.
Goalkeeper makes a mess of it.
Keeper's dropped it.
Goalkeeper makes a mess of it. Listen, Matt Doherty does go in and make some contact with him. But there's a difference between sticking your arm in the goalkeeper's face and sticking your arm up so you affect the football. He doesn't. I mean, there's body-to-body contact here. There. But the goalkeeper drops the ball. There's hardly a complaint from the Southampton defenders initially. Then they're thinking, wow, we better start asking the referee for it. And I think it's really generous. Really generous. Makes a mess of it. It goes right through his hands. Now, anybody listening to the commentators might be getting confused with Kasper Schmeichel, because he said, well, it's the same as Kasper Schmeichel, who had the ball for a fraction of a second.
David Prutton said, yeah.
So what the difference is, if you put your hand on the ball on a surface, the ground,
correct,
or the post, somewhere like that, but mainly the ground they're talking about, you put your hand on it for a second, you're deemed to have possession. When it's in the air like that, you're not. It's a different rule altogether. So just basically drop right through him. So I was a bit surprised that Anthony Taylor blew for a free kick there. I really was. So I think Spurs can think themselves really unlucky that they haven't won the game tonight.
If you want to use the technology to try to turn the game black and white, which you'll never do, by the way, then somebody should have been looking at that. The same aforementioned Martin Atkinson.
Yeah, why didn't he?
By the way, Anthony, nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with
Go
that.
and have a look.
Correct.
But anyway, all the goals are on the way from those 3 matches.
Willian, who's gone, these senior players have not been performing, which has allowed them to step up and get into that position. Whereas Maitland-Niles, I mean, I don't know how he's ever going to eclipse Thomas Partey, the £45 million signing. He's never going to get in ahead of Xhaka. So really the opportunity for him isn't quite that. A lot of people saying in the comments, you should sell El Neni first, or I think I'm acting on the thought that I think El Nenny's going to go anyway. So whether he's ahead of El Nenny or not doesn't really matter. We've not got Europa League this season. And I think that's been a huge factor as well in him not getting the game time he wants.
Good stuff. Tabra says definitely a character clash. It's not his outspoken nature, but his laid back approach. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I've just popped a poll in the chat box for those of you watching us live on YouTube right now. Is it time to move on Ainsley Maitland-Niles? Get your votes in, and by the time we discuss the next player, we'll come back and check in on that, see what the results are looking like, see if the listeners agree or disagree. Mike, give me another one of the players that you'd think Arsenal should be looking to move on.
I think Bernd Leno. I think this is probably an obvious one, but it's an important one because we've been in this situation before, slightly different circumstances, but when you've got two good keepers and you need to pick one essentially because you've got two experienced keepers, I'm obviously throwing it back to Leno and Martinez, which was not long ago at all. And ultimately, you know, we said to Martinez, yeah, you've been good, you've come into the side, you've impressed and you've earned your place, but ultimately you're not going to be given number one and that's it. It just doesn't work like that. Arteta doesn't want that. A lot of clubs don't operate like that really, where they have two top keepers and two that are vying to be number one. Usually it's, you know, your main keeper and then your sort of backup who's happy to, you know, play in the cups and play in Europe or whatever it is. And it's just not quite working. Obviously that situation happened. A lot of people thought that we should have kept Martinez. But I think this season he sort of dropped off a little bit. I know Villa have been a bit inconsistent. They had a manager change and all that, but I just think he's not been at the level that he was last season. And I think his performances dictated Arsenal fans saying, oh, well, we should have kept him, should have sold Leno. And ultimately performances are going to be up and down. He's a keeper that's not really played high level football for the last 10 years, whereas Leno has. And I think that's why they made a decision. And ultimately, it was probably the right decision, and it's worked out in our favour because now we've got to keep Aaron Ramsdale, who looks like he will be the number one going forward for a long, long time, and deservedly so. No one was expecting it. Everyone was thinking Leno is going to be the number one for the foreseeable future, and Ramsdale will challenge him, push him, you know, maybe be given a go here or there, but no one can tell me they expected him to waltz in after the third Premier League game of the season and become number one, start every single game in the league since then. So fair play to him, but